I saw a soul condemned forever. It was condemned for having this in its home. If you have this in your home or are thinking about having it, you need to listen to this very carefully right now. Padre Pio's words still echo in the halls of time with an urgency we cannot ignore. This saint, one of the most powerful in our church's history, witnessed something very few people know about. A revelation so shocking that it forever changed the way we understand the spiritual protection of our homes. And today, as we enter this Jubilee year of spiritual renewal, thousands of people around the world are rediscovering the warnings Padre Pio left us. Warnings that can save your soul and protect your family. Are you ready to discover what Padre Pio saw in that vision? Are you prepared to understand the 3 spiritual dangers that might be hiding inside your own home at this very moment? If the answer is yes, if you truly believe in heavenly protection, write in the comments now, "I believe in Padre Pio's protection." Because what I'm about to reveal in the next few minutes isn't just knowledge, it's a matter of eternal life or damnation. And Padre Pio, through his mystical connection with the divine, left us a map to navigate these invisible dangers that threaten our salvation every day. Padre Pio of Pietrelcina was born in 1887 in a small Italian town of the same name. From his earliest years, he displayed extraordinary mystical gifts. At just 5 years old, he had his first vision of Jesus Christ. By age 12, he was having regular visions of the infant Jesus, the Virgin Mary, and his guardian angel companions he spoke with daily as naturally as a close friend. But Padre Pio's gifts extended far beyond visions. In 1918, he received the stigmata, the 5 wounds of the crucified Christ. Open sores appeared on his hands, feet, and side, bleeding continuously, yet never becoming infected. Medical doctors examined these wounds for decades without ever finding a scientific explanation. They remained open for 50 years until the day he died. Padre Pio also possessed the remarkable gift of bilocation, the ability to be in 2 places at the same time. There are well-documented accounts of people who witnessed him praying in his monastery in Italy while simultaneously appearing in hospital wards, visiting the sick, or on battlefields comforting dying soldiers during World War II. In the confessional, he could read people's souls, knowing their sins before they ever spoke a word. Many tried to hide things from him, but he always saw the truth. And it was precisely because of this ability to see beyond the physical veil, to penetrate the spiritual world invisible to common eyes, that Padre Pio witnessed something that left us with one of the most urgent warnings in the history of the Church. It was an ordinary night at the convent of San Giovanni Rotondo. Padre Pio was in deep prayer, as he always was after midnight, when few brothers were still awake. Suddenly, he was swept up into mystical ecstasy, that state where his soul was elevated and he could see spiritual realities that are normally hidden from us. In this vision, Padre Pio saw a soul. But it wasn't a soul in heaven, radiant with glory. It was a soul descending into the eternal depths, to that place from which there is no return, the place of definitive separation from God. Hell. Padre Pio was horrified. His compassionate heart, which always interceded for sinners, was overcome by unbearable anguish. He cried out spiritually to that soul, "Why? Why are you being condemned? What did you do?" And the soul replied, with a voice full of despair and eternal regret that will never bring relief, "I was condemned for having this in my house. I was warned, but I ignored it. I thought it didn't make a difference. And now, it is too late." When Padre Pio emerged from this vision, he was shaking, drenched in cold sweat, with tears streaming down his face, marked by the stigmata. The monks who found him said they had never witnessed him in such distress. Through ragged breaths, Padre Pio whispered, How many souls are lost through ignorance? How many perish because they fail to understand the spiritual dangers they're inviting into their own homes? In the following days, Padre Pío began to speak about 3 specific spiritual dangers that may be present in our homes. 3 things that, if not recognized and removed, open portals to forces of darkness, weaken our heavenly protection, and put at risk not only our earthly peace, but our eternal salvation. And the first danger, my brothers and sisters, is something that most Catholics have in their homes without even suspecting the harm it may be causing. Padre Pío explained that religious objects, when not properly blessed or when obtained incorrectly, not only lose their protective power, but can become gateways for negative influences. He saw this clearly in his visions: unblessed crosses, medals bought in profane places without consecration, sacred images treated as mere decoration, without reverence, without prayer. Think about this for a moment. Do you have a crucifix on your living room wall, an image of Our Lady in your bedroom, a Saint Benedict medal on your door? Have these objects been properly blessed by a priest? Do you know where they came from? Were they given to you by someone with true faith, or were they simply bought in some market touched by hands that perhaps had no pure intention? Padre Pío used to say that a sacred object without consecration is like a sword without an edge. It looks like it will protect you, but in the heat of spiritual combat, you discover you are defenseless. Worse still, objects that appear religious but were made with wrong intentions or that have been profaned in some way can attract exactly what you thought they were warding off. There is a documented account of a woman who went to confession with Padre Pío in the 50s. She was desperate, saying her house was full of problems, constant fighting, inexplicable illnesses, a sensation of heaviness and oppression that no one could understand. She had crucifixes in every room, but nothing improved. Padre Pío closed his eyes for a moment, as if he was seeing beyond what she was saying. Then he asked, "Where did you get those crucifixes?" She replied that she had bought them at a market, from a street vendor, because they were beautiful and cheap. Padre Pío shook his head sadly. "My child, those objects were never blessed, and worse, they were made by hands that did not hold God in their hearts. You need to remove them immediately, burn them if necessary, and replace them with objects that are truly consecrated." The woman did exactly what Padre Pío commanded. She removed all those crucifixes and took them to her parish priest, who destroyed them with prayer. Afterward, she acquired new crucifixes, duly blessed, and placed them in her home with faith and reverence. Within a week, she reported that the atmosphere of the house had changed completely. The peace returned, the fighting stopped, the illnesses began to heal. This is the first danger: unconsecrated or profaned religious objects. But Padre Pío spoke of a second danger, even more subtle and even more common, and this danger has to do with something we do, or rather, that we fail to do every day in our homes. It's the absence of family prayer. Padre Pío used to say that a house without prayer is like a body without a soul. It may look alive on the surface, but it's spiritually dead inside. And where there's no spiritual life, darkness moves in effortlessly. How many families today still pray together? How many homes do you know where the father, mother, and children gather even for just 5 minutes to say the rosary, pray before bed, or thank God for the day's blessings? Padre Pío saw in his visions how demons literally fled in terror from houses where the family prayed united. He said that family prayer creates an invisible shield around the home, a celestial protection that no force of darkness can penetrate. But when this prayer is abandoned, when each member of the family lives only for themselves, immersed in distractions, in screens, in worldly concerns, the shield disappears and the doors open. There's another powerful account of a man who came to see Padre Pío in the 1960s. He was desperate. His teenage son had gotten mixed up with the wrong people, dangerous friends, destructive habits. The father was in tears, saying he didn't know what else to do. Padre Pío looked him square in the eye and asked with that commanding yet compassionate voice, "When was the last time you prayed with your son?" The man fell silent. He couldn't answer. It had been years. Maybe they'd never truly prayed together. Padre Pío said, "Do you want to save your son? Then start praying with him. It doesn't matter if he resists at first. You're the father. It's your job to bring God's presence into your home. Every night, gather your family, even if it's just 5 minutes, and pray the rosary together. You'll see the difference." The man did exactly that. It wasn't easy at first. His son complained, tried to get out of it, but the father kept at it, with love and conviction. Within 3 months, the son started changing. He dropped his bad friends, went back to church and asked to go to confession. That man still talks about it as the miracle that saved his family. This is the second danger, the absence of family prayer. And now we arrive at the third danger. This is the most ignored of all, but perhaps the most devastating. It is the danger that Padre Pío saw in that original vision, the danger that condemned that soul forever. I'm talking about something in millions of Catholic homes worldwide. Objects people keep for tradition, for their appearance, for family inheritance. But if they're not handled the right way, they become an open door to darkness. Before revealing what it is, I want you to stop and think. Look mentally at your house right now. What do you have on the walls? What do you have on the furniture? What did you inherit from your grandmother, from your mother, and keep stored away without really knowing what it means, without knowing the spiritual history behind it? Padre Pío said that many objects, even if they seem harmless, carry spiritual energies. And if those objects were used in practices contrary to the faith, if they were in environments where God was not honored, if they were touched by people involved with occultism, witchcraft, spiritism, they bring that spiritual contamination into your home. You might be thinking, but it's just an object. How can it have so much power? And the answer is simple. The spiritual world is real as the physical world. And objects can be vehicles for spiritual influences, both good and bad. That is why the Church has always blessed objects. That is why we have sacramentals, because we recognize that matter can be a channel of grace, but it can also be a channel of curses. Padre Pío used to tell of a family that had been tormented for years. Insomnia, nightmares, sightings of shadows, a constant sensation of fear. They had already consulted doctors, psychologists. Nothing worked. Until they sought out Padre Pío. Using his gift of discernment, he asked the family to describe their home, room by room. When they got to a particular bedroom, Padre Pío cut them off abruptly. "There's something in that room. Something old. Something that doesn't belong." The family was baffled. Then it hit them. There was an old trunk they'd inherited from a distant uncle who died decades before. Inside were strange objects, letters, and a book filled with symbols nobody understood. Padre Pío was blunt. "Destroy everything. All of it. Don't keep a single thing. Your uncle was involved in occult practices. Those objects are cursed. As long as they stay in your house, you'll never know peace." The family did what he said. They burned the trunk and everything in it, while praying and sprinkling holy water. That very night, for the first time in years, everyone slept peacefully. The nightmares stopped. The shadows were gone. The house finally felt like home again. This is the third danger. Spiritually contaminated objects that we keep in our homes out of ignorance. And that was exactly the danger that condemned the soul Padre Pío saw in his vision. That person had been warned through dreams, through intuition, perhaps even by other people, that there was something wrong in the house. But they ignored it. They thought it was superstition. They thought it made no difference. And when the time came for final judgment, they discovered too late that they had spent their entire life opening doors to darkness without realizing it. Now you might be asking yourself, how can I know if I have something like this in my house? How can I protect myself? And that is exactly what we are going to explore in the next few minutes. Because Padre Pío didn't just warn about the dangers. He also left us the solutions. He taught us how to purify our homes, how to close these spiritual doors, how to bring the protective presence of God into every room of our house. But before we continue, I need to know, do you understand the gravity of what I am saying? Do you realize that this is not just religious theory, but a matter of eternal salvation? If you do, if you truly want to protect your family and your soul, write in the comments right now, Padre Pío, protect my home. Because what I am about to reveal next could change your life forever. I'm going to tell you what Padre Pío saw when that soul tried to speak, when it tried to explain its eternal fate. And I will reveal the third and most ignored of all spiritual dangers, the one that could be in your house at this very moment without you noticing. The soul that Padre Pío saw descending into eternal damnation tried to scream, tried to justify itself. And what it said was chilling. It was a warning that echoes through the decades until it reaches us today, in this moment when we so desperately need to hear it. But this revelation, my brothers and sisters, needs to be understood in its full context. It needs to be received with a prepared heart. Because when you know exactly what that soul said, when you understand the third danger in its totality, your life will never be the same again. Are you ready for this truth? Remember the vision I mentioned. Padre Pío didn't just see the condemnation of that soul. He saw the reason why. And that is what you need to understand now, because what he revealed can completely change the way you protect your home and your family. The condemned soul Padre Pío saw wasn't what you'd expect. It wasn't someone guilty of terrible crimes or someone who'd openly turned away from God. It was an ordinary person, faithful, a practicing Catholic, someone like you or me. I went to Mass every Sunday, the soul told Padre Pío. I prayed the rosary, I took communion, I thought I was doing everything right. So how did someone like that end up condemned? The answer is chilling in its simplicity. This person had let something into their home, something that seemed innocent, something with no obvious spiritual connection. But that object placed thoughtlessly, without proper protection, without the right blessing, became a gateway, a door the enemy walked through. And here's what nobody wants to hear. It didn't happen overnight. It was slow, so gradual the person never realized what was occurring. First came the small disturbances, irritation without reason, arguments in the family that didn't exist before, a feeling of heaviness upon waking, as if rest were never enough. Small things that we all ignore, thinking it's just stress, just modern life. But these small things were symptoms, signs that something was spiritually wrong. And because that person didn't have sacramentals placed correctly in the home, there was no protection, there was no barrier. The third danger that Padre Pío saw, what he called invisible spiritual negligence, is exactly this. It's not about doing the wrong things. It's about not doing the right things. It's about presuming that faith in the heart is sufficient when God gave us concrete tools, blessed objects, rituals of protection that the Church has preserved for 2,000 years, and we ignore them. Now let me show you something that will help you identify if your house is vulnerable. These are 5 signs that Padre Pío documented in his writings, 5 indicators that a home lacks adequate spiritual protection. First sign, frequent conflicts without apparent cause, arguments that explode out of nowhere, constant irritation between people who love each other. If this is happening in your home, it's not just tiredness. It could be a spiritually unprotected environment. Second sign, persistent difficulty praying. You sit down to pray and your mind wanders. You open the Bible and feel instant sleepiness. You try to talk to God and it feels like there is an invisible wall. This isn't spiritual weakness. It's a symptom that opposing forces are acting in your space. Third sign, recurring nightmares or a sense of fear when entering certain rooms. Padre Pío was very clear about this. A spiritually protected home is a haven of peace. If there is fear, there is a spiritual reason. Fourth sign, religious objects breaking or falling without explanation. Crucifixes that plummet from the wall. Statues of saints that turn around on their own. Rosaries that snap repeatedly. This isn't coincidence. It is a manifestation of a hostile presence. And the fifth sign, the subtlest and therefore the most dangerous, absence of spiritual fruits. You go to Mass but feel nothing. You pray but it seems mechanical. You want to grow in faith but something always blocks it. Padre Pío used to say that this is like a plant in poisoned soil. No matter how much you water it, it doesn't grow because the environment is contaminated. If you identified one or more of these signs in your home, you need to pay close attention to what I'm about to tell you now. The condemned soul that Padre Pío encountered had all these signs, but she ignored them. She thought they were just normal parts of life. And when she finally realized the gravity, when she finally understood that a spiritual battle was taking place, it was too late. I didn't know, the soul told Padre Pío. No one ever taught me that sacred objects need to be placed in a specific way. No one told me that there are places where they have maximum power and places where they are practically useless. That is the tragedy. It's not a lack of faith, it's a lack of knowledge. It's what the prophet Hosea said thousands of years ago. My people perish for lack of knowledge. Padre Pío dedicated his life to correcting this ignorance. He didn't just warn about the dangers, he showed the path to protection. And what he taught is so practical, so specific, that anyone can implement it today. The object I'm talking about, the one that needs to be in your home, you probably already have. But let me ask you a question. Where is it? Because location changes everything. Padre Pío used to say that having a crucifix stored in a drawer is like having a fire extinguisher locked in the basement during a fire. Technically, you have the tool, but it is inaccessible in the moment of need. And here is something that will surprise you. It's not just any crucifix. There is a specific type that Padre Pío recommended. A type that he himself used and distributed to people who came seeking his guidance. It is a crucifix, blessed by a priest. Not bought online and put on the wall. Not inherited from your grandmother and left on a shelf. But taken to church, blessed with holy water, anointed with holy oil, and then placed in a strategic location in the house. And this location isn't random. There are 3 places that Padre Pío identified as points of maximum protection, places where the crucifix becomes a spiritual shield for the whole family. Let me tell you about Maria, a woman who attended one of Padre Pío's spiritual retreats in 1956. She arrived desperate. Her 8-year-old daughter had nightmares every night. She would scream, wake up sweating, saying she saw shadows in the room. Maria had crucifixes at home. She had statues of saints. She prayed the rosary daily. But nothing changed. Padre Pío asked a simple question. "Where is the crucifix in your daughter's room?" "On the wall, Father," she replied. "On which wall?" And that was when everything changed. Padre Pío explained that the wall matters. The height matters. The positioning in relation to the bed matters, because sacred objects aren't decoration, they are spiritual instruments. And like any instrument, they need to be used correctly to work. He gave Maria a blessed crucifix. He taught her exactly where to place it. He taught her a specific prayer to pray when positioning it. And he instructed that this should be done with faith, not as superstition, but as a sacramental act. That very night, Maria's daughter slept in peace for the first time in months, and she never had nightmares again. This isn't an isolated story. Padre Pío documented hundreds of such cases, transformed families, restored homes, all because they learned something that should be basic but has been forgotten: how to use the Church's sacramentals the way they were intended to be used. And before you think this is superstition, let me remind you, the Catholic Church is the oldest and most careful institution in the world when it comes to approving spiritual practices. What Padre Pio taught wasn't invented by him. It was passed down by the saints, by the Church Fathers, through a tradition that goes back to the Apostles. St. John Chrysostom, in the 4th century, was already writing about the power of the crucifix placed correctly in the home. St. Anthony of Padua, in the 13th century, taught protection rituals using blessed objects. St. Teresa of Avila carried a specific crucifix and positioned it in strategic places in the convents she founded. Padre Pio didn't create anything new. He simply rescued what had been forgotten. And now, in 2025, as families prepare for the Jubilee of Hope, while the world becomes increasingly spiritually chaotic, this knowledge is more necessary than ever. You don't need to be a theologian. You don't need to take a spirituality course. You just need to understand 3 things: which object to use, where to place it, and what prayer to say. And that's exactly what I'm about to teach you. The object is a cross. You know that by now. But how you use that cross, that's what changes everything. Padre Pio recommended a specific type. There are specific prayers he taught people, and specific positions that turn the crucifix from a mere symbol into an active spiritual shield. The condemned soul Padre Pio encountered didn't have this knowledge, but you do. And the difference between you and that soul is that there is still time. You are still here. You can still act. So stick with me now, because I'm going to show you exactly what Padre Pio taught. The 3-step ritual he passed down, the exact words he instructed to be prayed, and precisely where, to place the crucifix for maximum protection. You saw the danger, heard the soul's warning, felt the weight of the truth Padre Pio revealed to us. Now, the most important moment has arrived, receiving the gift of protection he left for you and your family. Because Padre Pio didn't just reveal the problem, he gave us the solution, a precise method tested through decades of spiritual protection, validated by thousands of testimonies around the world. And that's what you're going to receive now, the 3 exact steps to transform your home into a protected sanctuary, a place where the forces of darkness cannot enter, where your family is guarded under the sacred mantle of the cross. Pay attention to every detail, because the effectiveness of this protection depends on you following the instructions precisely as Padre Pio taught. It's not superstition, it's not magic. It is the correct application of a church sacramental with over 2,000 years of proven spiritual power. The first step is choosing the right crucifix. And here's something 90% of people don't know. Not every crucifix offers the same protection. Padre Pio was absolutely specific about this. The crucifix must be blessed by a priest, and it must have the visible body of Christ, what we call the corpus. Because the empty cross reminds us of the resurrection, but the crucifix with the body of Jesus shows us the sacrifice, the spilled blood, the price paid for our redemption. And it is this physical representation of sacrifice that has the power to ward off demonic forces. Padre Pio explained, when a demon sees a crucifix with the corpus, he sees his own defeat. He's forced to remember that Christ conquered death, that the blood spilled on the cross wiped out every claim darkness has over a baptized soul. That's why the crucifix must show Jesus crucified, not just an empty cross. And the material matters too. Padre Pio recommended crucifixes of wood or blessed metal, especially those made from Holy Land olive wood. Why? Because wood and metal conduct sacramental grace better. Plastic might serve as a reminder, but for maximum protection, choose a traditional solid crucifix, made with materials that carry the priestly blessing more potently. Where to get one? Visit a trusted Catholic religious goods store or order online from recognized suppliers. And here is the crucial step. Take it to be blessed by a priest. Don't assume it's already blessed. Ask for the specific blessing for objects of spiritual protection. When the priest blesses the crucifix, it becomes a sacramental, a channel of divine grace, a spiritual weapon against the forces of darkness. And now, let me tell you what happened to Carmen. She is a mother of 3 small children, lives in São Paulo, and for months her house was a place of inexplicable tension. The children would wake up screaming in the middle of the night. Her marriage was in constant crisis, and she herself felt a heavy oppression whenever she entered the house. That was when a friend told her about Padre Pio's teachings on the crucifix. Carmen bought a wooden crucifix with a clearly visible corpus, took it to be blessed by her parish priest, and followed exactly the instructions you are learning now. The very first night after placing the crucifix correctly, her children slept through the night for the first time in months. The atmosphere in the home changed completely. Carmen wrote to me saying, "It was as if a dark presence had left the house and the light could finally enter." The second step is the sacred positioning of the crucifix. Because it's not enough to have the right crucifix, you need to place it in the right spot, in the right way. Padre Pío was extremely precise about this. First, place the main crucifix at the entrance of your home, facing inward, as if Jesus were guarding the door, preventing any negative force from crossing that threshold. The ideal height is at eye level or slightly above, so that everyone who enters the house sees the crucified Christ first before anything else. This spiritually establishes that this house belongs to Christ, that He is the Lord of that home. Second, place crucifixes in the bedrooms as well, especially where the children sleep and in the couple's master bedroom. Position them on the wall above the headboard or on the wall opposite, so that it is the first thing you see upon waking and the last before sleeping. This spiritually seals the family's rest under the protection of the blood of Christ. Third, if you have a prayer space at home, place the most beautiful crucifix you have there, facing the spot where you pray. This transforms that space into a true domestic sanctuary, a place where God's presence is especially strong. And here's something critical that Padre Pío warned about. Never place questionable objects near your crucifixes. No figurines you don't know the origin of. No travel souvenirs that might have been involved in pagan practices. No crystals or New Age items. These objects carry conflicting spiritual influences, and you don't want them contaminating the protection you're building. Keep the area around the crucifix spiritually clean, only blessed Catholic images and objects nearby. The spiritual logic is simple. You are creating anchor points for the divine presence in your home. Each correctly positioned crucifix is like a spiritual fortress, a territory that belongs to Christ. And when you connect these points throughout the house, you create a protective network that darkness cannot penetrate. Let me share what happened with the Moreira family. They lived in a house where strange things happened constantly. Objects fell without explanation, doors slammed on their own, and the father often felt a threatening presence in the hallways at night. When they learned about the correct positioning of crucifixes according to Padre Pío, they didn't just place crucifixes. They mapped the whole house and positioned them strategically in every room. In the first week, all the phenomena stopped completely. The house that was once disturbing became a place of deep peace. Mr. Moreira told me, "It's as if we had expelled an intruder who was hiding in our own home." And now the third step, the most powerful of all, the activation prayer. Because the blessed and well-positioned crucifix already has power in itself. But when you pray the prayer that Padre Pío taught, you consciously and intentionally activate that protection. You formally invite the presence of Christ to guard your home. Padre Pío taught this prayer to his spiritual followers, and I'm passing it to you now. When you position each crucifix for the first time, make the sign of the cross in front of it and pray with genuine faith. Lord Jesus Christ, by the power of your holy cross, by your most precious blood shed on the cross, I ask you, protect this house and all who live here. Let no evil spirit enter. Let no force of darkness have any power. Make this house a sanctuary of your peace, a refuge of your protection, a place where your presence stays forever. Guard us from evil, save us from every spiritual danger, and wrap us in your mercy. Amen. Pray this with true conviction and faith. It's not a magic spell. It's a sincere, direct appeal to the Lord, calling on His power to protect you. After that first time, Padre Pío said to renew this protection regularly, especially every Friday and during Lent, or whenever you sense that dark spiritual forces are attacking your family. You can add other prayers to strengthen this protection even more. Say the rosary in front of your main crucifix once a week. Dedicate your whole family to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Ask for help from Saint Michael the Archangel, the mighty heavenly warrior, and from Padre Pío himself, who from heaven keeps watching over those who trust in him. Let me share the most impressive testimony I received. A woman named Luisa from Rio de Janeiro had been under spiritual attack for years. She had terrible nightmares every night, felt oppressive presences, and reached the point of being afraid to be alone at home. She had already tried everything, even resorting to practices she shouldn't have, which only made the situation worse. When she finally heard about Padre Pío's teachings, she followed the 3 steps you just learned. She got a blessed wooden crucifix, positioned it strategically at the main points of the house, and prayed the activation prayer with tears in her eyes and desperate faith. She told me that very night, for the first time in years, she slept soundly. No nightmares, no oppressive presence. She woke with a peace she hadn't known since she was a kid. And there's more. In the days after, impossible situations in her life started changing. A lawsuit stuck for years finally moved forward in her favor. A broken family relationship healed. Luisa said, "It wasn't just protection, it was total freedom. Padre Pío gave me my life back." This is what Padre Pío's protection does. It's not just about warding off spiritual attacks. It's about opening your life to the full flow of God's grace. Because when the forces of darkness are expelled, the light can finally enter and transform everything. Now you know what to do. You've seen the danger, learned the solution, and understand the 3 steps. Don't just keep this knowledge to yourself. Act on it this week. First, get a blessed crucifix with a visible corpus. Visit a Catholic store, choose carefully, and have a priest bless it if it isn't already blessed. Second, position it right at the entrance, in the bedrooms, in your prayer space. Do this deliberately and reverently, knowing you're building spiritual protection. Third, pray the activation prayer in front of each crucifix. Ask Jesus to be your home's permanent guardian. And if there are parts of your spiritual life that need fixing first, if it's been a long time since confession, if there are sins weighing on you, don't wait. Padre Pío said confession is our strongest weapon against the devil. When you confess, you close the doors that let darkness in. Find a priest, make a sincere confession, then set up your crucifix with a clean conscience and a soul in God's grace. That's when protection is strongest. Now share this knowledge. How many people do you know suffering spiritual attacks who don't know how to protect themselves? How many families are being torn apart by forces they can't see? You can be God's tool to bring this protection to them. Share this video. Tell others about Padre Pío's teachings. Be a voice for spiritual protection. And here on the channel, share what happens with you. Comment below once you've placed the crucifix and what changed. These real stories strengthen everyone's faith and show us that God's protection is real, it's powerful, and it's there for anyone who trusts. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. We're bringing you the most important teachings from the great saints' spiritual practices that actually work. Wisdom the Church has kept safe for 2,000 years, and that can transform your life. Let me end with words Padre Pío spoke to his followers. Stay close to the cross. Hold the cross tight. The cross is the only way up to heaven. And as long as you stand at the foot of the cross, nothing from hell can reach you. That's the promise. That's the protection. That's the truth that sets you free and keeps you safe. You're not fighting this spiritual battle alone. Christ already won. The cross already conquered. And now you have everything you need to live in that victory, to protect your family through that victory, to live in peace knowing God is your protector. May God bless you and your loved ones. May the power of the Holy Cross watch over your home. And may Padre Pio's protection continue guiding all of us on this spiritual journey. Go in peace, live protected.